Hi, I want to very quickly make a commentary on Trump once and for all. Anyone who still believes Trump is anything but Russian mafia's bitch is beyond me. I have just watched a couple of hours of stuff that was done up to 2 years ago by the BBC, which shows clearly that Trump was Putin's bitch. A lot of people say, "You're amazing, Brendan. You're so up on the ball." I'm not. There's so much I hate going online. I don't want anything to do with this subject. I want to drop and get a life out of this, out of it. You have no idea how much I despise it. So I know crap, but I do know one thing, and I want to discuss this very. No one has managed to explain the relationship between Putin and Netanyahu and the high technology contracts. Veterans Today has done a very good job. I've talked extensively with Dr. Kevin Barrett of Veterans Today on interviews. I have no relationship with Veterans Today other than I talk to Kevin Barrett literally as we're speaking. I don't have any other contact. He sends an email, Brendan, do you want to appear on this date? I say, yes, Kevin. That's it. So I have no relationship with Veterans Today. They've done some great reporting, but I want to discuss why no one can explain the military high technology contracts with Putin and Netanyahu. Putin is not a friend of the United States and he's not a friend of Islam. He's a friend of Netanyahu. Period. No ifs, no buts. No one else can explain it. And I put further to you that Israel has been taken over in a coup of Russian Orthodox Christians. Watch this video, please. It sums it up. It's a video I did. It's a good video. Russia and Israel control Trump. Period. I've shown it just with the most basic. I googled this stuff in 5 minutes. I've got 100 articles showing clearly that Israel has been taken over by Russians, most of whom do not identify as Jewish. They identify as either secularists, which you might say means they're ethnically Jewish but not religious. No, no, no. They are Orthodox Christians. And they were allowed into Israel from the 1990s on in that massive immigration, which I discuss here. Russia and Israel control Trump, or the electrical engineers, general engineering, PhDs of every kind. They run the high technology sector, they run the military sector, they run the education sector, they run the politics now. Are all Russians, they're Israelis, they don't identify as Jewish. They have their own enclaves, they refuse to speak Hebrew, they speak only Russian. Israelis are scared of them, and they fly backwards and forwards to Russia. The people that are now handling the F-35, which the American taxpayers via Lockheed, $38 billion later, handed to Russia. If they had flown it onto a Russian airbase, it would have made more sense. But they flew it into Israel and the Russian technicians were all over that aircraft. And nobody's talking about it. Just me. Just freaking me, and a few people who I'm going to name a bit later. They're doing some stuff via Talpiot, via their domination of the high technology sector and their infiltration of the American high technology sector. The United States Marine Corps has to come into play. Watch that video. It's a damn good video. And you try to explain to me how the Patriarch Krill is a KGB agent. The president of Russia is a very proud KGB agent. Patriarch Krill, if this was the Pope, it'd be an outcry, is a billionaire of personal billions via taxes on vodka and cigarettes and oil. And nobody will talk about it. I find this incredible. Either I'm a genius, you're all fucking stupid. You tell me which one it is. I can't believe this. I expected I'd be here for 4 to 6 weeks and this would just catch fire. I'd just throw the flame in, tell Piot, blah, 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 blah. Israeli ambassador comes out against Brendan O'Connell, blah, 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 blah. 3 years in jail, all this torture. Iranians are weird, and we'll talk about them later. And this would just catch fire. And I just return to my High Court case, get my $400,000 compensation for wrongful conviction, small parade, maybe a dance in the Austrian Alps, and I could then retire and practice psychotherapy, counseling, dream work, and self-actualization processes, eating organic food on my permaculture garden farm in the middle of nowhere with my rocking chair, dog, and shotgun. But it seems it's never going to catch on. Just a few people, Circus Maximus, work I've done with Kevin Barrett, a few radio interviews, but there's no follow-on. There's a couple of individuals, a few people, I'll talk about them later, who are taking this up. But on the whole, the main players aren't touching it. We're just in touch with, trying to get in touch with Ken O'Keefe as an ex-military person to push this forward. It's astounding. So I'm hoping Veterans Today is going to take it up because I've already taken up quite a bit. You need to read this article. In fact, you could just go onto YouTube. The BBC has proven beyond doubt how deep in bed Trump is with the Russian Jewish mafia, which is the link between him, Netanyahu, Chabad Lubavitch, and Putin. Clearly, Putin is running Israel. I believe he's running Israel. He's not just like a working with the traditional enemy. He's running it. They're sons of the City of London. And they're running. It wasn't enough to put, Rahm Emanuel in the White House as an agent, or David Axelrod, or a bunch of Israeli firsters in the US State Department. They had to stick their little bitch Trump. They stuck their own sexual deviant in there. It's perfect. Do you understand? How could you not know this now? And yet people are still, no, Brendan, no. And I'm just going, I think it's beyond stupidity. I think you're working for the opposition. It's beyond stupidity. Now, a few people I'm highly suspicious of, who I really am. It's like, you can't possibly still be running this fucking angle. That's ridiculous. And of course, Alex Jones, fucking the chief propaganda minister Goebbels for freaking Donald Trump. I mean, you need to listen to him more, because he's outrageous now. He's just blatantly outrageous. He can't get any guests on. Have you seen him? He's got no guests. He's brought back Joe Biggs. Where are all his economic advisors? He says, the end is near, the end is near. Where are they all? He's got no guests. He just rants about how unfair it all is. And Megyn Kelly had to fucking do an interview with him. And he's been set up, but he's got him back. It's all theatre. It's all theatre. You'll notice that Oliver Stone says, look at this. Oliver Stone. And I must admit, Veterans Today are doing some really good stuff. People say, oh, Veterans Today, Jim First, all this. Get lost, man. Get lost. Stop. If a website doesn't exactly match your view of things, they must be a freaking agent. Or they did this and not that. I'm just telling you, when I see a website push this issue, and they're not totally outrageous, which Veterans Today isn't, and they are the military angle you have to go. I support Veterans Today 100%. Again, I have no affiliation with them. I've just done a couple of interviews with Dr. Kevin Barrett, who I like and respect very much. Talk with Mason. That's it. I don't have any other contact. I'm just saying they appear to be doing the work, and they've done some excellent articles. This one, Oliver Stone, Israel is more dangerous than Russia. Here's the rub. The next step from this one, Veterans Today, if I may be so bold. It's not about Israel. It's Israel and Russia. And what we need is Oliver Stone or Veterans to say, discussing, which I discuss in this video, BB, Russia and Israel control Trump. How it is that the entire Israeli body politic, high technology sector is run by Russians who won't even learn Hebrew and don't even identify as Jewish. But they run backwards and forwards to Russia. I've been saying this for years. The patriarch is a KGB agent. The Rokor, the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, refused to rejoin the Russian Orthodox Church, which they said is just a product of Stalin and the KGB. That you drag the old abbots and the bishops out of the training schools and that for the Russian Orthodox Church out of New York. I had a friend there who filmed it. He had the film on YouTube. It's been taken down. I'm going to find that film again and show you. And they dragged those people and put them in mental institutions because they said, we will not join until Patriarch Kirill or Metropolitan, the tobacco Metropolitan, denounces his role as the KGB. And he refused. Never denied it, just refused to discuss it. Wouldn't denounce. And they said, well, F you, we're not joining back up. Because they know this is Anatoly Golitsyn 2.0. What's the main thrust? Number one, no one is talking about the Putin-Netanyahu massive connection of the Russian high technology sector and the Israeli high technology sector, and how they're running, like the new stealth technology, straight into Russia now. Telpiot, Unit 8200, their total domination of the high technology world under Israel, which they're now feeding into Russia, because they're real building Russia up under the new Soviet Union 2.0. Anatoly Golitsyn, new lies for old. He said this would happen, and I mention it in this video. Watch the video. I'm not going to go back over it. That connection has to be made. It's clear that Trump is literally working for the Russians. He's got no choice. He's totally sexually compromised. He's a bitch of Bibi and a bitch of Putin. Period. Russia is now running the White House. That is why when they said, oh, the Megyn Kelly interview, Putin really put her in his place. Excuse me? Are we watching the same interview? I watched a very uncomfortable President Vladimir Putin. He was very uncomfortable. He tossed the thing out. Megyn Kelly was cool and calm. Well, and they said he made mincemeat out of it. No, he looked like a very agitated and under stress person. That's what he looked like. Because at the end of the day, the American FBI who are investigating this, who know very well how corrupt Trump is, and they know very well how corrupt Hillary Clinton is too, they know this is a Putin-Netanyahu connection. That's why they keep pushing it, and they won't give up, because it's freaking true. So what's actually happening? Well, they're building up. They're building up the Soviet Union. That's what they're doing. Now Britain regains its preeminent role. Britain's basically got no role. It's a green soggy island with a bunch of nuclear-armed submarines, and no one's quite sure where they've got them. Sorry to say. I do have an affection for the United Kingdom and for some things it's done, not for other things it's done. I'm not going to go into that. We'll be here for an hour and a half. Please watch Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I've said it 1,000 times. Watch the old John le Carre novel, read the novel, watch you can get it on YouTube as the 4-hour miniseries with Sir Alec Guinness, and you can get the newer movie, which is excellent too, with Gary Oldman. Watch Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Nothing's what it seems. It's a 5-layer operation. They're rebuilding to make Soviet Union 2.0. This is the report from Iron Mountain. If you remember Colonel Fletcher Prouty, and he said how the Pentagon bought 13,000 copies of that think tank discussion paper, which no one knew who did, and they said it was a fraud. No, it wasn't. It said war is the only way to go. It's the only way to do social control. The Cold War must go on, and the high technology sector via war production is the only way to do it. So they said basically keep the Cold War system, and that's what they're going back to. Report from Iron Mountain. They'll bring back the stability through the terrorist threat. They brought in all these new government departments and high technology to put in place in America. They've really, which you could never have done under the old Cold War system, because people would have gone, wait a minute, this is Soviet Union type stuff. But they dismantled that, and then they had the terrorist threat. And remember, these people think 20, 40, 50, 100 years ahead. So they'll do this long-term planning. Now they've finished that aspect, the terrorist aspect. They've got it all in place. They'll do a small implosion and make the US withdraw from the Middle East. Putin is now sitting there. You've all been conned. All you Arab Muslims, you've just been scammed big time. Putin is working with Netanyahu. Now he can sit there and watch Israel's back as it disposes of the Gaza Strip and Hamas and disposes of Hezbollah, and maybe the Yinon plan puts a Christian state in the south of Lebanon. Could be difficult, but they might do it. And the greater Israel program continues with Russia by its side, because Russians hate Muslims. The Russian Orthodox Christians hate Muslims. Russia's a virtual dictatorship, albeit at least he seems to be a benevolent dictator for the Russian people, actually doing stuff for them, building it up. And they're much easier to work with than the highly fractured society of America, especially with a lot of lefty Jews who actually don't like seeing dead Muslims in occupied Palestine. So they're a very unreliable ally, because it's just too hard, because there is some semblance of democracy still there and multiple groups. With Russia, you've just got a very hungry for technology Putin and a virtual dictatorship, and Russians couldn't give a crap about Muslims. They're hard as nails. They've been through their own suffering. They said, yeah, big deal. And they're running Israel anyway. And as you should know, Russian Israelis are the worst. They are the worst behaved towards the Palestinians. So forget anything about Putin as your savior in the Middle East. He's there to help Netanyahu. He's also stopping the direct pipeline to Europe, and he's keeping Europe dependent on Russian energy. And now there's talk that the gas and oil fields will be developed by Israel, and they'll run a pipeline up into Europe, whereby Europe will be under control, because they're losing control of Europe. They hate Israel. They hate Netanyahu. Now they can get them back under control. They can then form the old Soviet Union 2.0 New Lies for Old Dream, which is the end of NATO, which Trump himself said, oh, let's get rid of NATO. Well, thank you. Stalin would have said, oh, thank you very much. Now Putin gets that. They'll have that system, that old Silk Road they're talking about, China, India, and Russia working with Israel. Israel's pouring in the technology to China with massive. They're withdrawing out of the United States to leave it to rot for now. They'll get it back later. Putin becomes preeminent statesman. Everyone else is mad. Trump's an idiot, but the deep state's taken over, blah, blah, blah. He forms that pan-Russian European Union, which they talked about, Anatoly Golitsyn, New Lies for Old, from the Volga to the North Sea. Britain regains the City of London. This is not about English people. This is about the City of London and the Crown, and we're not talking about Queen Elizabeth and the Prince Charles. We're talking about the Crown attached to the City of London. Rothschild's control of MI6 at the very top, where he trains his own little officers at his chateau outside London. This is well known, with his close ties with his son of the City of London, Putin, and his son of the City of London, Netanyahu. They do their job. The Crown will then hopefully get back control via Trump. The United States, after King George failed so miserably many years ago. The dream comes true, but this is the British Empire, RIT, East India Trading Company, Rothschild Jewish banking control. This has nothing to do with the Crown under Queen Victoria in the traditional sense. England regains its preeminent role. After all, if this new invigorated monster with its high technology handed to them by Israel, monster under Putin, also gets a control of the European states and forms a coalition with China and India, you now have this vast, terrifying bloc. England regains its preeminence. We're the last bastion against this beast. Their intelligence community gets built up again. They get nuclear subs. They've got the Saudis and the oil-producing nations still technically under their control. They've got Iran under the control of the City of London, definitely 100% under their control. I'm convinced of that now. I used to think maybe, now definitely Swiss banking house, the Rafsanjani crowd, the Rouhani crowd. They are absolutely sold out frauds. Rouhani hanging with Jack Straw, 6 years in Scotland, Freemason, in my opinion, and others, and veterans today. Do you see the system works? Now you've got the reinstigated Cold War. You've got all the Soviet Union style police state apparatus set up in the United States. And what's more, they couldn't destroy the American revolutionary spirit. They couldn't destroy the Second Amendment. They can't destroy the guns. That was a big one. That's why they moved to Australia. They love Australia. Totally disarmed, sitting under the big economic expansion of China and India. And a lot of Israelis, Jews, direct flights, they're all moving into Australia. The United States now can return to the role of the Cold War warrior, and they can now say, instead of chopping off that energy of free independent spirit, the 1776 spirit, the Second Amendment, the guns, instead of trying to cut that off, which they can't do it, it's too embedded in the American psyche. What they can do now is they can redirect that energy back into the patriotic front of taking on the new Russia 2.0. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, eat your heart out, new lies for old, reinvigorated, ready to go. Now that patriotic spirit, which was being internalized into weeding out this Slavic, Jewish, political Zionist parasite, which had taken over. Remember, it's Slavic in origin. A lot of Polish and Russian Jews who immigrated in the 1900s took over Wall Street, took over Hollywood, took over the news media, the magazines, you name it, the book publishers, right? Instead of that being internalized, now the US Marine Corps can be focused out, back into, and all your patriotic spirit, that spirit which was garnering organic grassroots support, the Tea Party, which Trump was put in place to stop, that horse that had bolted, which you had control of, the Tea Party movement and all these independent movements and these independent websites and these independent blogs and these independent YouTube channels, which was getting that 1776 spirit back. They got good old Alex Jones, the Goebbels propaganda minister for Trump, who's a meth addict, prostitute using piece of garbage, well known in Austin. And you've got Trump, of course, was the rider they stuck on that horse. And they somehow repackaged this moron, even conned me for a while, this sexual deviant, anally raping of young Katie and the rest of that stuff. It's all freaking true. It's obvious. Jeffrey Epstein's best mate on his plane all the time. Give me a break. Oh, Trump wouldn't do that. Oh, give me a break. He's well known. It's like saying, Stalin wouldn't open a gulag. So they've got it all back under control. That's what they're doing. And most importantly, they'll redirect that patriotic American energy back into the Cold War because they can't cut it off. And that's what they're doing, in my opinion. I hope that makes some sense. But please, someone explain to me the close ties between Putin and Netanyahu and the fact that Russians have totally taken over Israel, the most sensitive points. There's over 1 million of them. All the electrical engineering, normal engineers, education, PhDs, they're all Russian. I'd also like to quickly add, they have disappeared. Oliver Stone, Israel is more dangerous than Russia. What we need to say is no, Israel and Russia are dangerous, as is the City of London. Maybe here Oliver Stone can take the next step, because you've got to explain that relationship between Putin and Netanyahu. You've also got to explain one final thing. Shit, I lost my track. Something happened. That you've got to read that article, How Trump Became the Russian Mafia's Bitch, by this Veterans Today article. Please read it. It's just laying it out. It's laid out for you. You can't deny it. But please, this article has disappeared from Veterans Today. The British and US governments installed Khomeini in power. What happened to it? Not found. And I didn't save it to the MAF archive. I'm pretty peeved. I wonder where that's gone. So all this talk about war, shot down jets. Have you seen a shot down jet? Any footage of a shot down? Did it even happen? Please watch Wag the Dog. Please watch Wag the Dog. Change the story, change the lead. It's not a new concept. Squirrel, squirrel, look over there, look over there. Do you get it? They're stalling for time. The war's going to be the end of the Gaza Strip, the end of Hezbollah, and maybe Iran will get a slap, but they do not want Iran to go away. It's a valuable tool in keeping the arms business rolling along. You've got to have an enemy, for crying out loud. Greater Israel continues. Trump is a whore in the White House. The Russian Jewish mafia's got him by the balls. Netanyahu's got him by the balls. Putin's got him by the balls. Sons of the City of London. Reinvigorate the Cold War. Get the old social stability back using war and big two polar, bipolar, and Golitsyn even said they should have stayed in place and rubbed off on each other for a gradual winding down of that system, the current system of war as social control, war as a means to maintain your high technology sector. He said, let's just let it wind down, rub off on each other, and that's what we're seeing unfolding. You must read New Lies for Old, and you will see it unfolding before you. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to go get something to eat. There's a few things happening. I will go into them later. Good things.